Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Everything happened so suddenly that Wednesday night. When I got home from the office, my wife Sarah greeted me as usual. However, unlike the usual small talk, she asked me to sit down and said she had something important to talk about. Here we go again. I sighed darkly, preparing for another heavy conversation. Sarah sat across from me and began to talk about her love for me and her commitment to our marriage. For some reason, instead of calming me down, her words made me more uneasy. I was just about to open my mouth to respond when she took a deep breath and went straight to the point. Alex, I love you, and I want us to grow old together. But I've decided I want to have a relationship with someone else. The words came as a bolt from the blue, and I was completely unable to comprehend what she was talking about. Trying to calm my inner shock, I asked with difficulty, "Wait, you said you love me and don't want to ruin our relationship, but you're still planning to be with someone else?" Sarah immediately explained, "It's not what you think. I've met someone with whom I just want to have a physical relationship. It won't be on a regular basis, just occasional dates. I promise to be completely honest with you. I'm sure our relationship is strong enough that it won't affect how I feel about you. If you really love me, you'll understand that this is what I need." She said these things unusually calmly, as if she were explaining something perfectly ordinary. Still trying to digest this information, I then asked, "What makes you think this won't affect us? Do you already have plans with him?" Without hesitation, she admitted, "Yes, we're planning a weekend together next week." Then, as if to test my reaction, she said, "How would you feel if the roles were reversed?" I knew my answer might sting her, but told the truth anyway. "I'm okay with that as long as you can promise that it won't change anything between us." Sarah snorted, "Come on, you know that's not true. You'd go crazy if I suggested something like that." I laughed at this assumption on her part and she seemed surprised by my reaction. "I didn't think you would. I thought your love for me was enough for you to accept this." I looked at her incredulously. "What the hell were you thinking? Do you really think I'm going to stand by and watch you have an affair with another man? What am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait for you to come back while you spend the weekend with someone else?" For the first time, she showed hesitation. Maybe I did fail to think things through, including my own feelings. "But if I said no now, would you still agree?" She looked me straight in the eye and whispered, "I'm not sure. I didn't think you'd actually say no." "Obviously, neither of us have thought this through," Sarah suggested. "Tell you what, let's take a few days off. Tonight's conversation was a little out of the blue, so we'll talk it over on Sunday." I was overwhelmed and decided that I could no longer share a bed with her. As I started to pack my things to move to the guest room, Sarah noticed and asked what I was doing. "I don't want to sleep with someone who's full of other men," I said coldly, slamming the door to the guest room harder than I expected. It was a long, hard night, but it also gave me time to think. I realized that if Sarah did act on it, our marriage would never be the same. I started making plans. This 10-year marriage was coming to an end, and I needed to prepare for the coming storm. The next morning, I went to work as usual, but in my office, I immediately called my supervisor and explained that I needed to take a few days of personal leave. My supervisor was very understanding and immediately approved my request for leave. I began to execute my plan. First, I bought 3 voice-activated recording devices, one next to the phone, one installed in the bedroom, and one in Sarah's car. I even have a bug on my landline that records all calls. While Sarah was still at work, I went to our cell phone carrier. Since the account was always managed by me, I easily got her call logs. When I got home, I started checking her emails in depth. Soon I found an account I didn't know about, but it wasn't hard to guess the password. My stomach lurched when I saw what was inside, but at least I realized she hadn't had sex with the guy yet. I set up email forwarding so that every new email from her is silently forwarded to me. I also bought 2 small GPS trackers. They are easy to hide and almost impossible to detect. One will be in Sarah's purse where she always keeps her cash and credit cards, and the other will be installed in her car. By the end of that day, I had all the equipment I needed to track her movements. All that's left is to figure out how to view the messages in her cell phone, and I plan to accomplish this at night after she's asleep, along with installing a GPS device. When I checked her emails again, I saw that she had a lot of correspondence with a coworker named William. So it's William. This is the man who tried to destroy my world. The email confirms that their weekend plans will indeed go ahead, no matter what I say. That Friday, I went straight to a well-regarded divorce attorney. I told him to start preparing for divorce proceedings, to sue for adultery, and to make sure William was listed as a third party. The lawyer assured me that with hard evidence, it would be an easy case. I handed him the emails and call logs and told him that he would soon have the recordings as evidence, to which he was satisfied and promised to get on with it immediately. That night, when Sarah came home, I turned my back on her. She was busy in the kitchen preparing dinner while I went straight to grab my keys and head to the bar for a bite to eat and a couple of beers. When we got home, she tried to talk to me, but I walked right past her and into the guest room, slamming the door heavily. At this point, there was only one way to save our marriage, and that was for her to cancel her plans with William. But to be honest, I don't hold out much hope. I've been ignoring her all weekend. By Sunday afternoon, I felt it was time to talk. We sat in the kitchen and I got right to the point. I've been thinking about your request for the past few days, and I can't accept it no matter which way I look at it. You claim it won't affect our marriage, but it's already tearing us apart. Look at the tension between us, and if you can put yourself in my shoes, maybe you can understand why I can't accept this. I've tried to look at it from your point of view, but no matter how I think about it, it's not going to end well. So I have to say no. Sarah's response was pointed. How can you be so selfish? If you love me, why can't you let me have this? I couldn't believe she was turning things upside down like that. Selfish? I think it's only selfish for you to want to be with someone else in the life we've built together. What if I go anyway? She stared at me provocatively. There will be consequences, I warned. Our marriage vows from 10 years ago were to be faithful to each other. I know, but it's something I have to do. She insisted. By this point, I knew the conversation was over. Well then, we're done here. You really need to think about this. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and walked out of the house. I need to find a place to continue monitoring their email exchanges without her around. Sarah was so angry that I watched her send an email to William insisting that she would go no matter what I said. William also seemed eager and replied that he had booked room 125 at the Hilton in Kansas City for both Friday and Saturday nights. Upon learning this, I immediately booked the same room for Thursday night. They were just too gullible. In emails, they discussed romantic plans for Saturday night, including dinner, dancing, and alone time. Sarah even mentioned buying new underwear for the occasion. I ate my takeout while keeping an eye on their comings and goings. They completely ignored my objections and went all in on their weekend plans. Check-in time was 3 p.m. William would pick her up at 1 p.m. because it was a 2-hour drive. I was a little surprised that he would come straight to my house to pick her up, which made me need to rethink how I should respond. To make the evidence even more conclusive, I booked another room close to theirs so I could intercept all signals. Over the next few days, I prepared all the equipment I would need, including a couple of HD fiber optic cameras. I plan to install them in their room on Thursday so that I can have a complete record of their affair and provide strong evidence for my divorce case. During this time, I continued to remain aloof from Sarah. On Wednesday, the day of judgment belonging to her finally arrived. I decided to give her one last chance to change her mind. I sat down in the living room and motioned for Sarah to sit across from me. She was reluctant, but did as she was told. I got right to the point and asked her if she had reconsidered the matter. In a firm tone, she told me that she had decided to go ahead with her plans and talked about her upcoming weekend trip with William, hoping that we would be able to let this go and move on with our lives afterward. I let out a long sigh and gave her one last warning, telling her that this was her last chance to change her mind. I pleaded with her not to ruin our marriage on an impulse and warned her of the consequences she would face. But she stood her ground, and nothing shook her resolve. I said dryly, "So you chose William over me." Decision made. I turned to leave the room and slammed the door hard. It was obvious that our marriage had come to an end and someone had to pay for it. Thursday morning, I went to work and requested the afternoon and Friday off, saying I had to deal with the divorce. My supervisor showed understanding and approved without hesitation. In the afternoon, I drove to Kansas City, checked into the room Sarah and William would be using, and set up all the surveillance equipment to make sure every angle was perfectly captured. I carefully tested the camera to make sure everything was in place. When I got home that night, Reality hit me hard. My marriage is coming to an end, but I have one last thing to do. I went to a nearby store and bought a can of pepper spray, intending to use it to ruin their romantic evening. When I got home, Sarah was sitting in the kitchen and seemed to be waiting for something. I walked past her as usual and closed the door heavily. She followed me in trying to be friendly, but I cut her off straight away. "Leave that to William. I don't need your pity." I turned around and she left the room with me. I barely slept that night, but I knew everything was ready. Friday morning, I went out as usual and didn't say a word to her. I went straight to the lawyer's office and signed the divorce papers. I told them they would have all the evidence on Monday and asked for the documents to be delivered to Sarah's workplace on Monday afternoon. I also made sure that William would receive the paperwork at the same time, as I intended to sue him for marital breach. When I checked Sarah's GPS location, I realized she was at the hair salon, and that was my chance. I came home, opened her suitcase, and found her new underwear. I have to say, those lingerie were really sexy, but the thought that she wasn't wearing them for me sent a stab of pain through me. I put on my rubber gloves and pulled out my underwear, sprayed the crotch of my panties and the cups of my bra with pepper spray, and put them back in place, unable to hold back a smile. This was going to be fun. After that, I went to the bank, closed all the joint accounts, transferred the money to my newly opened account, and canceled all the credit cards we shared. With that done, I returned home and prepared to say goodbye to my soon-to-be ex-wife, Sarah. I got home around 12:30 and knew she was getting ready for her upcoming weekend with William. I didn't find Sarah downstairs, so I went upstairs to the bedroom and found her wearing the lingerie I had bought her earlier. She looked embarrassed and tried to cover up, but I stopped her. "Don't bother. I've seen it all before anyway." Honestly, she looks gorgeous. New hair, perfect makeup, and that tantalizing lingerie. I couldn't help but say, "You look really great today. It's just a shame you've never tried this hard for me." She lowered her head and explained that she was just trying to feel better. "It is indeed beautiful," I admitted, "but it seems you are more concerned with impressing him than me." She apologized and said she was just trying to feel attractive. I sighed and reminded her that she had always been beautiful in my eyes. "I've always loved you, and I thought you loved me too," I whispered, reaching down and removing the wedding ring from her left hand. "These rings, especially the one I gave you on our wedding day, mean so much to me. They symbolize the commitment we have to give up other people." I paused and continued, "But apparently that promise doesn't mean as much to you anymore." I explained that I didn't want to see her wearing my ring with another man. I also reminded her that the engagement ring was my mother's, and I was going to keep it as a souvenir. Sarah looked shocked but didn't say a word as I pocketed the ring. "I won't be here when William gets here," I said calmly, "but don't let him set foot in my house, and if you do, I promise you'll both be stuck for life." She asked what that meant, and I was very direct. "He's not allowed in this house, Sarah. Do you understand?" "Understood," she replied. "I won't let him in." "Good," I said, "because I'll be watching." She looked at me with a hurt look in her eyes and asked, "Why are you doing this?" I replied, "Because the favorite person in my life just destroyed everything we had." I sighed and turned to walk out of the house without looking back at her. I heard her call out to me from behind me, but I didn't want to hear it anymore. I parked a few blocks away, out of sight, but close enough to see if William would show up. If he dares to walk into that house, I'd rather risk jail than make them regret it. Soon his car pulls up and I watch as he walks to the door and rings the bell, and Sarah walks out with her suitcase. They embraced and later shared a long, passionate kiss. He picked up her suitcase, and as they turned to leave, Sarah glanced in my direction with a smug smile on her face. As they drove by, she threw another haughty look, and I didn't hesitate to give her the middle finger, which made the smile on her face disappear. After they left, I returned home to change all the locks and garage door codes and grabbed my already packed suitcase for Kansas City. When I arrived at the hotel, I went straight to my room and set up my laptop. Through the previously installed camera, I could clearly see that Sarah was taking the initiative, and it was obvious that they had been intimate, though it didn't look like William was able to hold out for long. I couldn't help but laugh when William walked out of the bathroom naked. This guy is so small compared to what Sarah is used to. I laughed again as I watched him crawl back into bed for the next round. As Sarah held her arms out to him, I looked at his pathetic size and thought to myself that she might not even feel him. William really didn't need to refrain because that size didn't give her any pleasure at all. I could see the disappointment on Sarah's face becoming more and more apparent. This weekend was clearly not going to go as she had hoped. They took another break halfway through, and Sarah's frustration grew. The guy finished 3 times, but only for a pathetic 4 minutes each time, and Sarah wasn't even satisfied once. Honestly, it's even funnier than I thought it would be. She would come home disappointed for one last night, and the next day would be out of my life forever. I couldn't watch it anymore and decided to go out for dinner and some wine. Their tedious cheating would be fully documented, evidence enough to hand over to a lawyer, and enough to prove what a bad decision Sarah had made. When they return, William is asleep and Sarah is still sitting there, visibly chagrined. Things that were killing me are now fun. Lying in bed that night, I thought about the women I had seen at the bar and actually felt a little bit of anticipation for my upcoming single life. The pain had dissipated and I knew exactly where I was headed. The next morning I woke up refreshed, took a shower, ate breakfast, and bought some snacks for backup. Suddenly, something came to me. I called the local florist and ordered a bouquet of flowers for Sarah, the kind we always send on our anniversary. It will be the last bouquet she receives for her anniversary anyway, and I hope she thinks about what she's about to lose. I set the flower delivery for 11 a.m., when they should be on a roll. The timing was just right. They went out for a while, came back and started making out again, but it wasn't long before they were interrupted by a knock on the door. The flowers arrived and I watched Sarah's expression change from surprise to annoyance. She immediately picked up the phone and called me. Hearing the phone ring, I gave a smug smile. "Hello? Did you send the flowers?" She was already angry. "Oh, you got it? Well, it's not a good day for me either. My wife is with another man and I'm trying to keep my sanity here," I said in a fake, light-hearted manner. "Why did you do that?" She asked sternly. "These are the exact same flowers you used to give every anniversary." I couldn't help but laugh. "You think it's from me?" "Honey, if I had sent the flowers, they wouldn't have been roses. They would have been fleur-de-lis. The card wouldn't say that either. It would say, 'For my wife who betrayed her marriage.' But maybe these flowers will remind you of what you're about to lose." There was silence on the other end of the line, and I just hung up. She called several times in quick succession, but I didn't answer. Eventually, she gave up, and I saw her talking to William about it, and he tried to reassure her that I would eventually accept it. He was so wrong. Sarah wasn't very excited at first, but soon gave in to William again. Just as they were getting back into it, I had another idea. I ordered one of Sarah's favorite pizzas, which arrived just as William was finding his groove. He was upset and tried to refuse, but the delivery man insisted on verifying the room number and his phone number. The poor guy had no choice but to pay, or the delivery guy was going to call the police. After the pizza was delivered, they figured since they had already paid for it, they might as well get something to eat first. After eating, they chatted for a while, but William couldn't help himself and was soon chasing Sarah again. That's when I ordered her favorite sandwich again. A few minutes later, the knock on the door came again. At the sight of the sandwiches, Sarah blanched, finally realizing that I knew exactly where they were. William can't believe it, but Sarah starts to piece things together. She told him I was good at this sort of thing and said I must have hacked her email to find them. At this point, they decided to go out for a spin, intending to return in the evening. Sarah assures William that she will make it up to him tonight. I laughed so hard I had tears in my eyes as I watched them leave. When they returned, the pair took a shower and dressed up carefully. Sarah also puts on a little performance in her lingerie for William, and he wants to make a move again, but she insists on going out on a date first. I can't wait to see what's next. As they left the hotel room like a romantic couple, I waited patiently for their return. About an hour later, they arrived back at the hotel and Sarah immediately rushed into the bathroom and took a longer shower than usual. When she came out, her breasts and private parts were glowing a distinct red color and looked very sore. "Looks like poor William is going home empty-handed tonight, too." Sarah collapses on the bed moaning, and when William tries to make out, she sternly says she's too sore to be in the mood. She blamed it on an allergic reaction to her new underwear. I organized the video footage, prepared the DVDs for the lawyers and William's wife, and went to bed when everything was ready. It was a perfect day, and I couldn't help but smile as I watched the trouble brewing in that little paradise of theirs. And that's just the beginning. Sunday morning, I packed my bags and headed home. I know what kind of scene Sarah will be facing when she returns, but I'm in no hurry to reveal it. William didn't even get out of his car to drop her off when he dropped her off at the door like he was dropping off a delivery. I was sitting on the couch watching a soccer game and completely ignored her when she announced she was back. Sarah stood in front of the TV, blocking my view, and gave me a flirty smile. "I guess you're glad to see me alive, since you care so much." I stared intently at the screen and replied, "What makes you think that? Do you think I'm suddenly stupid?" She changed her tone and explained, "I don't think you're stupid. I just think your love for me is strong enough to accept this." I finally looked at her and said coldly, "I did love you, but that changed when you left with another man. I poured my heart out to you, but it meant nothing to you." Sarah seemed shocked at my reaction. "I can't believe you would do this to me." I laughed sarcastically, "Like everyone else?" Her tone softened, and she asked me if there was any chance of getting it back, saying she would do anything to fix our relationship. I laughed mockingly. "Anything? How about getting down on your knees and apologizing now?" She scoffed, "I can't do that." I sighed, "I knew you wouldn't, just like you couldn't keep your marriage vows. Now you're saying you need me. That's ridiculous. Seriously, I'm not interested in you anymore. Do you and little William have proper protection every time?" Her eyes widened. "No. I mean, he's married and can't have kids." I sneered, "Do you really think you're the only one he didn't wear a condom on? As far as I'm concerned, you're already tainted, and I won't touch you unless you can get a clean bill of health from your doctor." She retorted, "If you don't trust me, you can wear a condom." I laughed bitterly. "You mean I'm going to wear a condom and have sex with my own wife just because she just slept with a loser? You've got to be kidding me. You chose William over me, so fuck you. I'm going out. I can't stand looking at your betrayed face. You sleep in the guest room tonight, and I'll take the master bedroom because I didn't do anything wrong." Sarah's voice hardened. "We'll talk tomorrow after work." I shook my head. "I don't think there's anything left to talk about." I walked out and went to a nearby bar for dinner. While I don't drink a lot, I need to clear my head. Despite the fact that I'm pretty clear-headed, I just need to get away from her. I came home after dinner and a long walk to find her lying on my bed. I looked at her sternly. "Get out." She argued, "It's our bed and I have the same rights as you." I said angrily, "Fuck your rights. You lost that right when you slept with William. Get out of my bed or I'll throw you and all your stuff into the street." She started to cry, but I didn't budge. She slowly got up, sobbing, and walked toward the door, which I made sure to lock behind her. The next morning, I completely ignored her. We each had breakfast, and she went to work as usual. Before she walked out the door, she stopped and said, "I love you." I cast her a cold look. "I loved you too." Note the past tense. I watched her turn away with tears in her eyes. As soon as she's gone, I'll start putting her stuff in a garbage bag. I then contacted William's wife, Emma, and asked her if she knew that her husband had been with my wife over the weekend. She said she thought he'd gone on a business trip. I offered to share the evidence, and she was interested. When I arrived at her house, Emma surprised me with her beauty. I froze in the doorway and apologized for my reaction, frankly surprised by her beauty. After calming down, I explained in detail what had happened throughout the weekend. Emma was so angry with William that we agreed to see my lawyer to see if he would take her case. The lawyer agreed to represent him and gave a discount. While she was filling out the paperwork, I spoke briefly with the attorney and confirmed that there would be no wait to file a lawsuit against William. Once the papers were ready, we went to lunch together and waited for her divorce papers to be completed. After she signed, I drove her home and waited for Sarah's call. I knew she'd be shocked at what was about to happen. Sure enough, around 3 p.m., Sarah called, sounding agitated. "What the fuck is going on?" "I just got the divorce papers, and William got an indictment for alienation of affection." I replied calmly, "It's simple, isn't it? I warned you there would be consequences, but it seems you didn't believe me. I didn't think you'd actually do it." She retorted. I couldn't help but laugh. "Maybe you should have listened to me instead of believing all that William crap. But let's not talk about this over the phone until you get back." After hanging up the phone, I put all her stuff in a garbage bag and threw it in the front yard. I set up my video recording equipment in case I need to file a restraining order. When she drove into her driveway and saw her things strewn across the lawn, she lost all control. She screamed hysterically, sputtered, and kept on hurling insults. I stayed calm and watched her vent until she finally broke down. "If you want to talk, calm down and we can talk civilly," I said. "Otherwise, I'll just load your stuff into the car and you can leave." She sobbed. "I never thought you'd do this to me." I cringed. "To you? Sarah, you ruined us. I told you over and over again not to do it, but you chose to ruin our marriage anyway. Did you think I wouldn't file for divorce? You said you loved me." She sobbed. I replied firmly, "Yes, I do love you more than anything, but you broke my heart. The real problem is that you never really loved or respected me, and I can't be with someone who despises me so much, even though I still have feelings for you." Sarah asked hesitantly, "Why do you keep calling him Little William?" I laughed out loud. "I put a camera in your room and I watched all weekend. The first time I saw his pathetic size, I laughed so hard I could barely breathe. I doubt you could even feel him." She blushed. "We made love," she whispered. "Missed that, did you?" I said sarcastically, "Sarah, now you can have as many people as you want." She shook her head. "I don't want anyone else. I just want you." Sighing, I said, "Let's go inside and sit for a while." We walked into the kitchen and sat down like we had done countless times before. But this time, I suddenly realized it would be the last time. She looked at me and asked softly, "Would you really hurt William?" I stared at her. "Why not? He ruined our marriage and I think he should pay for it, not just a lawsuit and a divorce." Puzzled, she asked, "Wait, he's not really getting a divorce, is he?" "Now he's divorced too." I told her. "His wife is informed and ready to end the marriage. In fact, they now share a lawyer and we got a discount." Sarah expressed skepticism. "Do you really believe this? Or are you just trying to embarrass me?" I shook my head. "I talked to his wife this morning. I showed her all the evidence. William told her it was a business trip and now they're both done." She was silent for a moment and finally said, "I really wish you had been honest before and told me how crazy you would have reacted to the fact that I wanted to be with someone else. I know you would have gone crazy." I let out a bitter laugh. "The thing is, even now you don't trust me, and that's one of the reasons we're getting a divorce. Honestly, I don't care anymore. Just wait until you call him and you'll find out that he's been kicked out of his house, just like you." "Are you really going to kick me out?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes, Sarah. From the night you told me about your plan, I went to the guest room to think about it, and within an hour I decided I wanted a divorce. On Thursday, I bought all the equipment I needed and hacked into your email. By Friday, I had met with a lawyer and started divorce proceedings." Realizing her world was falling apart, Sarah asked, "Why didn't you tell me you were getting a divorce ahead of time? Maybe I would have reconsidered. Is there any other way for you to forgive me?" I paused, feeling the weight of the moment. "Sarah, I love you more than anything and there was a chance to forgive, but that chance slipped away last night. Even if I could forgive you, I would never trust you again. I'd spend all day worrying about when you'd want to be with someone else again, and I can't live like that." Looking at the tears welling up in her eyes, I continued, "Unlike you, I've thought deeply about it. No matter what I think, the conclusion is the same. I'm going to divorce you, and I'm going to make sure that William pays for destroying our marriage." Finally, I saw reality sink into her face. "Just call him and ask him to see where you're going to stay. Don't try to use the credit card, though. I've canceled it. I left you half the money in the checking account and canceled my name. I'll split half your savings. You can keep your car, but you'll have to make your own monthly payments. You can take your clothes and personal belongings, and I'll even give you some furniture when you find a place to live. But the house is mine, and if I sell it, I will give you half. But that's all written in the divorce settlement. If you choose to fight it, I'll use the evidence I've gathered against you, and the outcome won't be good for you." She nodded, her voice trembling. "I won't fight it. It's all my fault. How I wish I could do it all over again." Trying to lighten the mood, I asked, "Do you know the difference between a cheating wife and a light bulb?" Confused, she asked, "I don't know. What's the difference?" You can't have a relationship with a light bulb. I joked, but her expression remained serious. Clearly, this was not a joke she could laugh at. She shook her head softly. I won't argue. I know it's all my fault. I just wish I could do it all over again. Realizing it was over, I told her it was time to go. I helped her load the last of her things into the car as she stood there in tears. Finally, I handed her something, her wedding ring, which had been flattened with my hammer into a meaningless piece of metal. You could sell it for money, I said bluntly, watching emotions flash across her face. Then I leaned over and kissed her forehead and whispered, "Goodbye, my love." I turned and walked back to the house without looking back at her. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.